The desert had a way of stripping men down to what they truly were. And for Thomas Hale, it revealed a hollow soul soaked in whiskey and regret. Once he had been respected along the frontier, a man with land, a modest harvest, and dreams that stretched as wide as the plains. But drought does not negotiate and loss does not ask permission. When his wife died in childbirth, something inside Thomas cracked open and never healed. The house grew quiet, the fields grew dry, and the bottle became his only companion. In that silence lived his daughter Eliza, a young woman forced to grow up too fast, learning early how to walk softly, how to speak carefully, how to disappear when her father's temper flared like a sudden storm.
She had her mother's
Eyes deep and thoughtful, but none of her warmth remained in that house. Every failed harvest, every unpaid debt, every mocking whisper from neighbors seemed to land on Eliza's shoulders, as if her very existence reminded Thomas of everything he had lost. In frontier towns, cruelty often disguised itself as tradition. By the time Eliza reached womanhood, people had already decided her fate for her. She had been promised once, then twice, and both times the arrangements fell apart. The men wanted heirs, sons to inherit land and carry names forward. When months passed and no child came, rumors spread quickly, as rumors always do. Infertile, they said. Cursed, some whispered behind church doors. Eliza heard every word, even when spoken softly. She lowered her eyes, folded her hands, and carried the shame like a burden she never deserved. Thomas heard those whispers too, and they poisoned what little love he had left. To him, Eliza became not a daughter, but a reminder, a living symbol of failure, of a bloodline ending in dust. On the night everything broke beyond repair, the moon hung low and yellow, and Thomas had been drinking since sundown. His words slurred together, his steps uneven, his mind swimming with anger and self-pity. Eliza recognized the look in his eyes, the one that meant danger, not always of fists but of decisions that could never be undone. He grabbed her arm with a grip fueled more by desperation than cruelty, and dragged her from the house. She asked where they were going, her voice barely above a whisper, but he did not answer. He only drank again and pushed her forward into the open desert. They walked for hours beneath the cold stars. Eliza's shoes tore, her feet bled, and the hem of her dress darkened with dust and dried blood, but she did not cry out. Fear had long since taught her silence. When the distant glow of firelight appeared on the horizon, her heart sank. Everyone on the frontier knew those fires belonged to the Apache. Stories painted them as monsters, men without mercy. Eliza's breath caught as she realized what her father was doing. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, fueled by alcohol and madness. At the edge of the camp, Thomas collapsed into the sand, shouting broken words of offering and apology. Apache warriors emerged from the shadows, silent and watchful. Eliza expected violence, chains, death. Instead, one man stepped forward alone. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his presence calm but commanding. His long black hair was braided neatly, a single feather tied near the end. His face bore the marks of a warrior, but his eyes held something else, something measured, almost gentle. This was Nantan, known among his people as Silent Hawk. He studied Thomas, then Eliza. Without a word, Nantan placed his hand on Thomas's chest and pushed him backward into the sand. The gesture was final. Then he draped his cloak over Eliza's shoulders, shielding her from the cold and from her father's shame. He guided her away from Thomas and toward the firelight. Behind them, Thomas's voice faded into the desert night, swallowed by the same emptiness that had consumed his soul. Eliza waited for the nightmare to continue, but it never came. She was given water, warmth, space. No one claimed her. No one touched her. Days passed, then weeks. Nantan arranged for a small shelter near the river, away from the center of the camp, giving her privacy and dignity. Food was brought each morning. When she cried at night, no one mocked her. Often she noticed Nantan sitting nearby, his back turned, keeping watch without intruding. Slowly, the fear that had lived in her bones for years began to loosen. For the first time in her life, she was safe. No one demanded her body. No one demanded children she had been told she could never give. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in red and gold, Eliza gathered the courage to ask Nantan why he had not sent her away. He stared into the fire and said in careful words that a woman's worth was not measured by her womb, that a heart could give life in many ways. Eliza wept, not from sorrow but from relief. Someone finally saw her as whole. Winter came, quiet and unforgiving. Eliza learned the rhythms of the camp. working beside the women, caring for the old and the sick. She was never ordered to help, yet she did, because purpose felt better than fear. The women noticed her gentleness, her endurance, and gave her a name that meant Quiet River. Nantan watched from a distance, his respect deepening into something heavier, something warmer, though he never claimed it aloud. When sickness swept through the camp, Eliza stayed awake night after night, cooling fevers, holding hands, refusing to leave even when death hovered near. Nantan stood guard while she worked, turning away anyone who questioned her place. "She brings life," he said simply, and no one argued. It was after the sickness passed that Eliza realized she was with child. Fear nearly crushed her. She had been told her entire life it was impossible. When she told Nantan, her voice shook, expecting rejection. Instead, he knelt before her, pressing his forehead to her belly, tears falling freely. He told her the child was not proof of worth, not a correction of some imagined flaw, but a gift born of trust and love. In that moment, Eliza understood she had never been broken. The lie had simply been repeated until it felt true. Their child was born at dawn beneath a blazing sky. Women sang softly as Eliza labored, and Nantan never left her side. When the child cried, the sound carried across the camp like a blessing. The elders named him Bridge Between Worlds. Nantan held his son not with pride, but with reverence. Peace did not last. Soldiers came with dust on their boots and fire in their eyes. When violence erupted, Nantan stepped in front of Eliza without hesitation. He fought not for land or pride, but for the woman once discarded and the family love had built. When the battle ended, Eliza found him where he had fallen, his eyes peaceful. He had taken wounds meant for others. She cradled him, whispering gratitude instead of regret. He had loved her without ownership and protected her without condition. Years passed. Eliza raised her son on stories of a man who proved that love was not possession, that strength was gentleness, and that real worth was never defined by rumors or cruelty. The girl once given away in drunken despair became a woman who carried generations forward, not because she was claimed, but because she was cherished. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love can rise even in the harshest places, if it proved that dignity, respect, and compassion can change destinies, subscribe to the channel. More powerful emotional stories are coming. Stories of loss, redemption, and unforgettable love. Stay with us and don't miss the next one.